What's going on, family? It's your boy, Simo the C. Mitchell, checking in with another Falcons bird bath. And real quick, man, we're going to get into it on the Falcons live stream and get my just immediate reaction about new press conference with our new coach, Kevin Stefanski.
The committee, talked a lot about what is the vision for our organization moving forward. What is the football going to look like? And one of the things we said, not one of the things, but the main thing was we wanted a detailed, tough, physical football team. On offense, we want an offense that has the ability to run the football, that is going to be explosive with the pass game off of the run. On defense, we're going to stop the run. We're going to be physical against the run. In the pass game, we're going to affect the quarterback physically, and we're going to affect him mentally as well, with disguise, with the way that we play coverage. And then on special teams, we were looking for a unit that was incredibly detailed, that plays with great effort and strength.
Matt and I have talked about what this place is about when this building's rocking. And what's important to Matt is winning. And I know sitting with Matt and sitting with the general manager, we'll be aligned in that vision of putting together a football team where winning is at the forefront of everything we do. As Matt mentioned, we're putting a staff together that I'm very, very excited about. Every role, every job on a coaching staff matters because it's our job to develop our football players. It's very, very easy to sit up here and talk about it. We will be about that work. We will put in the work, and it's going to be hard work.
Will you be calling plays? And also, can you speak to Tommy Rees and working with him the last couple of years?
Sure. Tommy will call plays. That's a setup that I'm very, very comfortable with. I think he's an outstanding football coach. He's young, but I don't know if you always measure experience just in years. I think he's had unbelievable experiences in his young career. He's somebody that I trust. We see the game similarly, but we also push each other because we're different. So Tommy will head up that offensive staff. I'm excited about some of the people we've been able to bring in already.
Bill Callahan, one of the first coaches you brought to the staff. What does he bring to this team?
Bill Callahan is somebody, I hired Bill in 2020. I didn't know Bill prior to that. We had some mutual friends, if you will, in the profession, but I got to witness Bill up close and personal for 4 seasons there and watch how he worked and how he develops players. I think he's the best in the business. He's somebody that I lean on, being a former head coach himself, somebody that has been just a great partner for me in our season, so just thrilled to have him.
I think, from the quarterback's perspective, you look at it in the positions that you get put in. I always valued the run game and the ability to run the football and some of the pressure that takes off of you, specifically as a young quarterback. I think back to my experience as you talk, and we hear questions about Penix. Some of those early days as a young player, the ability to hand the ball off to a guy like Michael Turner, really solid physical offensive line, the way they played up front, and then using the play-action pass off of that. I think those are all tools to help develop a young player. I think that's a strength of Kevin's. I think that's a strength of the staff that's coming in. So I think that's important. I think the other thing it does is it helps with pass protection. When you run the football well and you are not one-dimensional of just sitting back there, letting defensive ends, letting defensive tackles pin their ears back and rush, it slows down some of that. So if you can mitigate pass rush, you can mitigate some of the opportunities of sitting back there and dropping back and having to throw it 35, 40 times a game on straight drop back. I think that helps a young player. And I think that's something that Kevin, both in his time in Minnesota and in Cleveland, has done a good job of.
Maria, on the right side.
Coach, welcome to Atlanta. Maria Martin, 11 Alive News here in Atlanta. So when you're retaining Jeff Ulbrich as the defensive coordinator, in your first conversations with him, aside from shaving the beard, what impresses you about his defensive philosophy, and why was it important to keep him here?
Well, I have a ton of respect for Coach Brick. We, again, similar, I was talking about with Coach Callahan, we don't know each other personally, but we know a lot of people in this business. And the way they talked about him and the way they talked about how he teaches and how he gets the most out of his players, there was a very easy conversation. Just watching the tape, some of the things that he was able to do this season with some of our young players, it was really exciting. So early on, we got on the horn, and it was obvious to me, and I think it was obvious to him. We really hit it off, cut from the same cloth, if you will, from a football perspective, but can't tell you how excited I am to have Coach Brick with us.
Go Josh Kendall, followed by Terrence Moore.
Hey, Kevin, Josh with The Athletic. You speak a lot about the run game. What are your thoughts about Bijan Robinson?
He's good. Yeah, I love Bijan. I spent some time with him. When I first got hired, I think I sent him a very late text message. Sorry, Bijan. But just I couldn't wait to talk to him. Spent some time with him in Flowery Branch in the locker room, just catching up. He's a special person. I'd start there. This is a special person that everybody told me about, but then I got to see for myself what type of person he is, and he's team-oriented. He's an intelligent player, and there's no shortage to what he can do with the football in his hands, and that's our job as coaches to find ways to get that ball in his hands.
I don't know what your draft position was 3 years ago or whatever, but how much prep did you do on him at the time, and what did you think of him just as a running back, just as a physical?
Yeah, quite honestly, did not do much on him. I don't believe he was somebody that we'd have a chance to get.
Terrence Moore, Forbes.com. And Kevin, how much were you involved in personnel decisions in Cleveland, and how involved will you be with personnel decisions with the Falcons? And Matt, you can answer that question too.
Sure, Terrence.
Question we want to know.
It's my job to tell our GM, to tell Matt what I think of a player. It's my job to tell them the fit of the player in our offense, our defense, our special teams. I'm a partner. I want to collaborate and give my opinion. But ultimately, I trust the people in those type of positions to pick the players. As a coach, I want to develop our players. I want to get the absolute best out of our players. And I know Matt and I have talked about that collaboration, how it works really well in buildings and making sure that everybody is aligned on that. I've learned from all of my seasons in this football, in this game of football, if you will. Something I've told Matt, there's a quote I love where smooth seas do not make skillful sailors. And I think it's something that's important, as all of us understand. Some of those tough moments are going to make us better. And to our fans, I want them to know that we're going to put our heads down and we're going to work.
Cunningham at AJC. You and Matt both have been emphasizing the importance of the run game. Here in Atlanta over the years, they've favored mostly a wide zone scheme. Is that something you're in favor of? And also, what's your overall philosophy on running the ball?
Sure. So I do believe in running the football. Yes, wide zone football is something that I believe in. You also have Coach Callahan here, and Coach and I, when we got together there in Cleveland, really balanced two worlds of wide zone football and some gap football. And I think that's a really good place to start when you're talking about run game. I do believe you can't be good at everything. I don't believe you can be so diverse that you're trying to live in every single world. I think you have to hang your hat on specific things. And I think Coach Callahan, as you get around Coach Callahan and Tommy Rees and hear them talk about their run game.
I was wondering your philosophy on the tight end. You have been a quarterback whisperer when you've had the veteran quarterbacks or a good quarterback player. I wonder if you consider yourself a tight end whisperer, and what do you think about Kyle Pitts with a very big decision on him coming up at the end of the season?
I wouldn't say whisperer. I'll say aficionado. How about that? I love the position. I coached it. It was my first position to coach on the offensive staff was tight ends there with the Vikings under Coach Zimmer. I love the position because of the versatility that it provides in offense. And you've seen it around the league. This is nothing new or earth-shattering, but tight ends that can line up all over, make life hard on a defense, and where you can line them up outside, in the backfield, in line, you name it. We love versatility of that position. Obviously, Kyle's somebody that we'll talk at length more about when it comes to those type of roster conversations, but the position itself is something that we feel really very strongly about.
Go Mike Bell, far back left.
Mike Bell, tonight in the game. Were you surprised by Mayfield's comments about you coming to Atlanta and looking forward to seeing you twice a year?
Yeah, Baker's somebody that I have a ton of respect for as a player and a person. I love rivalries in sports, and obviously Buccaneers-Falcons have a great rivalry. It's something that I'm excited about, but I would not get into the specifics of those type of things, other than to say I have a ton of respect for Baker as a player, as a person. That's a great team with a great player.
There was a few things that they really said that stood out to me that I really loved from that press conference. First and foremost, I think it's very great. I think it's a huge thing that Matt Ryan acknowledged how much he wants to run the football, how important it is to run the football. He's been a young quarterback in this league. I think he realizes how much he benefited from having good running backs on this team. First, starting off with Michael the Burner Turner. Michael Turner was a very huge part of the early part of Matt Ryan's career. I don't think he makes Rookie of the Year if we don't have Michael Turner there. And even though Matt Ryan came in and he was able to do some things with his arm early on in his career here in Atlanta, being able to turn around and hand that ball off to Michael Turner was huge. But then we had Tevin Coleman, Devontae Freeman. I think that Matt, again, he loves being able to run the football. And as I said in my previous comments or my previous videos, I got a lot of flack from people. They said that I was just regurgitating what the other media was saying. But I believe that Kevin Stefanski wants to run the football, and he wants to be able to get that play action and be able to get deep with Michael Penix's arm, and that's going to be huge for him. Those are the biggest things that Michael Penix did well in college. He had a long arm. He was really good at being able to use play action. And I think that they're going to run from under center with him a lot more than we've seen previously. I think that Stefanski's going to do a good job of getting that out of him. Also, they asked Stefanski about that wide zone and if he was going to stick to that. Stefanski literally said, we're going to do some wide zone, but we're going to do some gap control. We're going to do some gap football as well, too. And that's huge. You need to be able to get your offensive linemen going, blowing off the ball, moving forward. Getting those guys out of that pistol formation as much and not being a pass-happy unit it's just going to help them out a lot more. Your linemen, they like to get nasty and get dirty, and the strength of this team is running the football. The strength of our offensive line is the run game. We have athletic, not maulers. We don't have mauling offensive tackles or guards, but Bergeron is nasty. And, Caleb McGarry, he'll mix it up. But those are two of the better run-blocking linemen in the league. Also, Chris Lindstrom, best guard in the league. And if you don't agree with me, man, you can argue with your echo in the cave. Best offensive guard in the league. And Jake Matthews, a little long in the tooth. But, again, those guys, they don't want to be as passive, stepping back and pass blocking. It makes it easier when you keep the defensive line guessing, and you keep the coaches guessing on what they're going to be doing out there. So running the ball is going to be huge for us, and that's a big part of what we need to be doing moving forward. And shout out to you guys in the comments section. They asked me what I think about Lipford. I'm going to talk about him. That's a guy that we just actually completed a GM search for it with as well. But I have a few other notes that I have here as well too, and let me go ahead and pull that up. I was actually working on a thumbnail for our live. But the tight end position, that's where Kevin Stefanski started as an offensive coach. But he's also been good with working with quarterbacks as well too. I think that the fact that he was in Minnesota, not only a tight end position coach, but he also went to the quarterback position as a coach too as well. And I don't think he's necessarily a whisperer, but I think that he does understand what it takes to get good quarterback play in this league. And a tight end is the key position. It's the key helper, the safety blanket for your quarterback. And we know that Michael Penix wanted to be able to get Kyle Pitts the ball a lot more. He said that in the offseason, he was going to be able to get Pitts the ball a lot more. I believe that he actually did try to get the ball to Pitts a lot more. Teams just knew that that's where he was going to go, and they wanted to take that away. But he also said last year in the offseason on one of my previous videos, and I'll try to link that in the comments below, not on the live stream, but once the video publishes. But he said that Drake London wasn't going to not be known as a top 5 receiver anymore either. And Drake London's numbers were not the best this year because he got injured, but I think in just 7 or 8 games, or maybe 10 games, he had like 800 yards, which is phenomenal. It's crazy. I think that's like, don't get me to lie to you with math, but that's over 70 yards per game right there. So I believe we're going to see a lot more of that this year. And Drake London is a guy who is nasty as a run blocker downfield. He's mean. He's got a mean streak, a dark edge to him as well. He's also one of those guys that when you get the ball in his hands, it takes 5 or 6 people to be able to bring him down. So I think that we're going to see a lot of them using Kyle Pitts a lot more, and we're going to see him using Drake London a little bit more like a tight end as well too. And for that reason of how Stefanski likes to use the tight end, because in Cleveland they say that Njoku really liked him a lot. Shout out to the homie Doe. Doe told me that. He read that. How Njoku really liked to play for Stefanski. And I believe that Kyle Pitts is a lot better of a tight end than David Njoku is. I think Njoku is a really skilled player. He's got some athletic matchup nightmare problems for people, but not in the way that Kyle Pitts is. So I believe that we're probably going to re-sign Kyle Pitts, and we're probably going to bring in Pitts so that we're going to probably bring him in as a franchise, under that franchise tag. Try to see what happens and maybe work out another long-term deal with him as well, too. Shout out to the comments. King Phillips says, I'm low-key excited. I'm very excited, too, my friend. I'm excited for what we're going to get. I believe that we're definitely going to it's going to be nice this year. It's going to be nice this year. We're not going to have these lapses of shying away from the run game. That was a problem for me last year, in my humble opinion. We got away from the run too much, especially when we were up at times. I don't think that we're going to have those type of brain farts, and I believe that Kevin Stefanski, and mind you guys, I'm not selling you some false optimism. He was bad the last 2 years in Cleveland, but he also wasn't given a lot of talent. But I believe that we're not going to have those same lapses in judgment. I don't believe that we're going to have game management issues, clock management issues. I think he's going to be a lot better at calling timeouts. And as I said before, I've said this several times, when he was in Minnesota, he took Case Keenum to the postseason. I think they had like an 11-5 record with Case Keenum. And he had his best year of his career as a backup quarterback when that quarterback got injured that year. So I really believe that if you give him some tools here in Atlanta, you give him a roster like what we have, it's going to be a problem for teams. It is going to be an absolute nightmare for teams. You heard Matt Ryan say, we want to affect the pass. We want to affect the passing lanes. We want to get after the quarterback. We want to put pressure. He is all the way in alignment with what it is that our defensive coordinator, Ulbrich, wants to do. So we're not touching that. We're not changing that philosophy. And Kevin Stefanski brings a very similar offense to what we have here in Atlanta already now. It's just going to be a difference in the play calling. A lot of people don't realize this, but Stefanski, he's off that coaching tree of Ulbrich. And shout out to the homie Trent, who #1 Falcons supporter that there is, #1 Falcons Bird Bath supporter that there is. He said that Stefanski is more Kubiak than Kubiak. He coached with Clint Kubiak's father, Greg Kubiak, who also came off of the Shanahan coaching tree. Not Kyle Shanahan, but Mike Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan coached with Gary Kubiak as well. So it's a full circle thing right there. They have derivatives of the West Coast offense. They run a lot of single back, but they are very heavy and dedicated to the run. They also asked Stefanski what his role was in Cleveland with the personnel, and I don't think he got to do a whole lot with personnel in Cleveland. But his job here in Atlanta, he realizes, is to let Matt know and let the GM know what he's looking for with the type of players that he wants. And I believe that here in Atlanta, they're going to do a lot more to try to be able to get him the players that he needs. Keep in mind that the last 2 seasons of Cleveland, and even the last 3 seasons, were a little bit of a decline because, remember, they traded away their first-round pick for 3 seasons in a row. And that's a bad strategy even in Madden. If you do that and you don't get a good player in return or a game-changing player in return. And they expected Deshaun Watson to be that. And I can't really knock them too much because Deshaun Watson looked like he was going to be on his way to being as good as Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Deshaun Watson at one point were the 3 hottest new young quarterbacks. And I play a lot of fantasy football. Deshaun Watson is a guy that I had on my team for several years. I just kept saying, if they could just get the right coach down there in Houston, if they can get the right players around him, it's going to be nasty for him. So I think we're seeing C.J. Stroud now do what we were hoping that Deshaun Watson was going to do. But him being out of football for a few years, I think that kind of hurt him. You sit out a whole year or 2, and then he wind up getting hurt. I think that's why we didn't see things really pan out as well either. Now, I want to talk about the GM, Lipford, here in a second, but I want to read one more comment over here in the section. I'm going to read a couple of comments over here in the section. Millie Mills says, say it again, Case Keenum, bro. I don't think you guys are realizing when I say that. Case Keenum, he took Case Keenum to the playoffs with an 11-5 record. I don't know very many coaches that have done more with less. People said they wanted to see Harbaugh and they wanted to see Mike Tomlin here. Keep in mind, he beat both of those guys in the playoffs. He's got more playoff wins in the last 10 years than Mike Tomlin had in the last 10 years. Just keep that in mind. Jamal ATL 404 says, I saw KP interview where he was talking about how exciting it's going to be to play for Stefanski. He said he reached out to Njoku and he loved playing for Stefanski. I'm pretty confident KP will be back. Hey, do me a favor, Jamal, man. Send me that link. Send me that in the comment section, man, or post it in the actual regular section once the video continues to upload. You can also reach out to me on at Point Game Official on Instagram. Drop it in my inbox if you don't see, if you can't put it on here. But I want to find that article and I'll do a breakdown and talk a little bit more about that as well too, because I'd like to see that. I'm always consuming more information. GA Texas Boy says, also remember, Clint Kubiak was under Stefanski, correct. He said, yep, that interview with Draymond Green. Don't know that interview you're talking about. Oh, he was interviewed with Draymond Green where he was talking to him. Interesting. Send me that interview, bro. Send me that interview, one of you guys, whoever can get it to me first. I want to talk about Lipford, though. Lipford, he's a guy that was the assistant GM with the Houston Texans. And admittedly, I don't know a whole lot about him. So I had to kind of look him up a little bit more. But he's been with the Texans since 2018. He was a director of the college scouting before his latest promotion. He's been there for this C.J. Stroud draft. He's been there for the Will Anderson pick. I think he was an integral part of being able to bring in their, don't give me the line about their head coach's name, but real good defensive coordinator previously before that. So I don't think it's a bad look. I am admittedly a little bit more leaning toward Ian Cunningham from Chicago. He was with the Ravens doing some of their championship runs, and he was there with Ozzie Newsome, who is one of the greatest GMs that I've ever seen. Ozzie Newsome had a great playing career as a player at the tight end position, but then he turned around and just is a Hall of Fame GM, honestly. I think he is inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame for what he's done. But he got a lot of talent there in Baltimore, and he was heavy on the defensive side. But he brought in Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, all those guys. Even drafted Joe Flacco. Ray Rice was responsible for bringing that physicality to the team. And we heard Matt talk about that in Stefanski. They want to be a physical team. I think we're going to see the Falcons get back to a lot of smash mouth football. But Ian Cunningham was also in Philly during a lot of those recent drafts as well too. So he's seen some really good GMs do it. And I think that it's great when you can go to multiple places and take and learn from other people and mix and mold your own style. I believe that he's probably going to be the front runner. He's under the GM in Chicago right now, who Matt Ryan played college ball with as well too. So there's a connection there as well. But I think they're just doing their due diligence to continue looking for the GM search. So I'm really excited about whoever they pick. The third candidate, who was also neck and neck right there with Ian Cunningham, was the guy in San Francisco. His name slips me off the top of my head, and I didn't plan on specifically talking about him. But that's a guy who was a part of player personnel and did some extensive scouting. And him and Ian Cunningham are both guys that we interviewed for the president position. And I said that previously. I was like, we were interviewing them at the president position before Matt Ryan. And I figured Matt Ryan was going to be the guy who was going to get that position, but that those guys could probably come in as the GM. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Ian Cunningham might not want to take the job in Atlanta, though, because I'm not sure how much say-so or power they're going to give him here. I think if you're going to take on that GM position, you want to see if you can put your own stamp on things. You want to be the guy. So it will be interesting. I don't think he's an ego-tripping type of guy, but I don't know what the dynamic is going to be with the power here in Atlanta. But we do know that Matt Ryan said that he is not going to try to get in the way of the GM or the head coach in doing their jobs. So either way that they go, I think that they're really, really mulling it over, and they're going to put their best foot forward as it pertains to that. I'm going to read to the comments again before we get on to the next topic. GA Texas Boy says, also remember, oh, no, we read that already. Josh Williams. Thank you for that, GA Texas Boy. Josh Williams. That is the name of the guy from San Francisco who's in the front office. That's the guy who we've also interviewed that his name slipped my mind. I feel really confident about him. And a lot of people talk about Atlanta, oh, this is a chocolate city, it's a black mecca. And everything isn't about race, but I do think that it's important to understand that you have a unique demographic here in Atlanta. For what it's worth, both Ian Cunningham and Josh Williams are both minority candidates. So I think that it's important that sometimes to give these guys that position or that chance, that opportunity, if they're qualified. There are not a lot of head front office GMs that are black in this league, and I don't believe in just being a DEI hire. I hate when people say that type of stuff. I don't believe you should get the job just because of the color of your skin, but I do believe that a lot of these guys historically have not gotten those positions, and I believe that these are two really smart guys that we could have as our GM. You look out there, Josh Williams was underneath John Lynch as the GM out there. And also with Kyle Shanahan, a really smart football mind guy. He's a coach's son. He's been around a lot of football all his life. And I think that when you're around a lot of smarter people, a lot of guys who have a wealth of knowledge and wisdom above you and below you, it just makes you better. It makes you smarter at what you're doing. So I think that's a great thing for both Ian Cunningham and Josh Williams. And I feel confident regardless of where we go with this GM search. I think that those are our three candidates that we're probably going to be looking at the best. And that's where I'd like to see us go. Millie Mills 302 says, I can't wait for fans to backtrack on Coach Ski. He actually has us winning games and using the talent the way that he should. When he has us, there's a little typo there. When he has us actually using talent and winning games the way he should. And he says also, like you said, Kevin is more Kubiak than Clint. Shit's crazy. But yet fans wanted a first-time head coach again. Make it make sense, bro. I want to say that as well too. People wanted to see us go with the sexy new coordinator, a hot coordinator at the time. We did that with Raheem Morris. And also people were talking about, I've seen a lot of people saying this right now, oh man, we could have had Mike Vrabel. He's in the playoffs right now. He's in the Super Bowl. And we could have had Mike McDonald. Mike McDonald did not want to go here, right? That was said by John Harbaugh. It was always Seattle for him. And I don't think that Mike Vrabel wanted to come here either. He has ties to New England. But keep in mind, a lot of the same people who are talking about how Stefanski's coaching record the last 2 years was a losing record. Well, the last 2 years for Mike Vrabel in Tennessee was bad. And I got a buddy who was a Raiders fan who was like, why would you want Mike Vrabel? He didn't light it up in Tennessee. He wasn't doing great in Tennessee. As a matter of fact, I saw a screenshot from somebody else that said, when people said, oh, this would be a good hire, Mike Vrabel, they said, we had him for 2 years basically here in Atlanta, talking about Arthur Smith. So I think that there's a lot of selective outrage and selective picking of what these coaches are. Our fan base is very emotional, as is a lot of fan bases. I don't think that the Falcons fan base, the average fan out here, is quite the football head that they are in certain other cities, because there's a lot more to do here in Atlanta. Whereas if you go to somewhere like Pittsburgh or Baltimore, those are football towns because that's all they got there. Atlanta, it's a party, nightlife city, home of the strip club, living pepper wings. It's Black Hollywood now. So I think that being here in Atlanta, the average fan, if the team isn't winning, they're not going to keep supporting it. But I like the moves that we're going to be making here. But I think that it's very disingenuous for people to kind of keep talking and pointing at that fact about Mike Vrabel, because we're kind of doing what they wanted to see us do before. Basically, go get the experienced head coach. And I'm not necessarily saying I'm the most excited about this. I wasn't the most excited about it when we got him, but I like it. I like the move. I want to talk about also some of the other recent additions. Craig Aukerman, he is a guy that was the special team coach for Miami. Now, Miami didn't have the best special teams unit, but their special teams unit was ranked better than our special teams unit last year. And basically, they were better on their special teams than they were in Cleveland last year. A lot of people were saying, oh, is Stefanski going to bring in his same special teams coordinator like he did with the offensive line coach, which is a great move. Callahan's one of the best offensive line coaches in the league, and the way that they did with being able to bring in Rees. But I do like that we went outside of Cleveland and we didn't keep the same coordinator that we had here before. But yards per attempt on kickoff returns last year, I think that, if I'm not mistaken, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, Miami was averaging a little bit over 26 yards per attempt on kickoff returns, which is somewhere around 12th or 13th in the league in the NFL. And also they were averaging 10 yards per attempt on their punt return as well too. Now, that's maybe top 20 or something like that. I don't think it's nearly as high, maybe in the teens, but it's a lot better than what we had. We were averaging under 10 yards per attempt whenever we had punt returns last year. So I am excited about that possibility of getting better. And I don't think that we necessarily need to be a top 10 punt return team or kickoff return team with our special teams unit. We just want to be able to get into the top 20. And I'm stealing this from Moose on Chat Sports. I do consume other content creators. Really like a lot of the content that he drops. And in Saturday Morning Inspection, one of my other favorite sports podcasters to watch out there as well for their play breakdowns. But Moose said it. We don't need to be a top 10 unit. We just want to be in the top 20 with what we're doing. Now, on kickoff coverage and punt coverage, Miami wasn't quite as good. But I do believe that they're going to pay a lot more attention to detail. And coverage units have a lot more to do with your athleticism and the defensive players that you put out there, or guys who just want to go out and be football players and want to hit. I saw a video of Terrell Davis, Hall of Fame player Terrell Davis, before he got his, before he started taking over the league and kicking ass as a Hall of Fame running back in the preseason. He didn't think he was going to be playing anymore, and they was like, Davis, get out there. He's like, man, whoever I see get the ball, it was on kickoff team. Whoever I see out there, whoever gets the ball, I'm going to lay into him. It's my chance to make a name for myself. And that's what you want, is players like that who will just go out there and be football players at the end of the day. And he laid that guy out. But also, we've seen the playoffs. There's been times where, I think it was a game where Puka Nacua or somebody they were trying to throw to him deep, and he was going to miss the pass. It was overthrown by Matthew Stafford, and he just turned around and he knocked the crap out of the defensive back who was going to intercept it and laid him out. We've seen Julio Jones do that. Just smart football IQ guys, heads-up situational football players is what you need on your special teams unit. It's 1/3 of the game, and I believe that we're going to do our best to get those guys in here. I believe that players like J.D. Bertrand are probably going to be gone next year. I think that we're going to eliminate a lot of the penalties as well too. A lot of players, or a lot of fans out there, have said that the players didn't like Stefanski in Cleveland. He wasn't a likable coach. Look at me. I don't give a damn if you like him. I got coaches that I didn't like at the time who made me better. Are you going to go out here and win games? I bet you a lot of players didn't like Bill Belichick either. Your job is not to like the coach. You do want a guy who could be somewhat of a counselor, a guy who could be a leader, a guy who can guide these guys and keep them out of trouble. But for what it's worth, Raheem Morris, was a likable guy. For what it's worth, Dan Quinn was a likable guy. Oh, the brotherhood, the camaraderie. But these are guys who were highly emotional. Well, not as much with Raheem. We didn't see him move with the emotions in the way that we saw it with Mike Smith, the way that we saw it with Dan Quinn, the way that we saw it with even Jim Mora, a fiery guy, a really likable guy. But when it came down to it, it was situational football, or if a play was made that was a mistake that cost the team, you see him on the sideline. Oh my God. You don't want to look over at the pilot of your plane when turbulence is going on and like, oh man, I'm scared of this shit too. Imagine being a child and your father said, you know what, son, I'm kind of scared, man. I ain't got the rent right now. No, you want a guy who's going to come out here and be a leader, man. And I want a tough coach. I want a hard-nosed coach. And, to win in Cleveland, you got to be tough, man. That is one of the coldest places to play at. And I want to reiterate again, Cleveland is one of the few franchises that is absolutely, hands down, undeniably, unarguably more dysfunctional than the Falcons are as a franchise historically. Over the last 10 years, they have more playoff wins than we do and more playoff appearances than we do. I believe it's better to be a Falcons fan as well, too. We're dysfunctional as well, too. We've been dysfunctional, but we have an owner who wants to win, who wants to create an environment. We heard them talk about that during the press conference, Stefanski as well, too. So I'm very excited about that, because if you can win in Cleveland, I think you can win in a lot of other places. And again, I am not trying to sell you guys some optimism. I want to see what happens when the season gets here. But being able to do it in Cleveland with Joe Flacco, and again, Stefanski got the most out of Baker Mayfield to that point of his career. His third year got Baker Mayfield to stop turning the ball over. We know he's going to turn around and hand that ball off. And I want to reiterate this as well, too. His first year there in Cleveland, that was during the pandemic. Remember, during the pandemic, teams were not allowed to go through OTAs. Teams were not allowed to have camp in the same way. So he just came flat in off the street addressing his team, didn't have time to go through everything, and got blown out in week 1 and turned around and made the playoffs. I think even that year Nick Chubb got hurt as well, too. One of the years that they made the playoffs, Nick Chubb got hurt. Your quarterback is down, your running back is down, and your top 2 offensive weapons are Amari Cooper and David Njoku, and you go to the playoffs. Tell me that you can't do it with Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson. Who they asked him about, what do you think about Bijan Robinson? And he gave a great answer. He's really good. And did you scout him right? No, I didn't think we were going to be able to get him. It ain't rocket science, man. You know that he's a good player. They're going to get the ball to this guy. And I believe, and even Steve Hightower, who we've had on the show, shout out to Steve Hightower, our resident sports specialist, who's played football, played in the NFL as well. We've talked about this, but Bijan Robinson is the second coming of Marshall Faulk. And he is a better, in my humble opinion, a better blocker and a better run between the tackles running back than Marshall Faulk was too. He has deceptive power as a running back. So keep that in mind. Let's see what else we got over here in the comment section. Millie Mills says, I feel as though Zach and Heem was babysitting Michael Penix last year, and it actually hurt his development by doing that. I agree. I believe that they were probably kind of pampering him and coddling him a little bit. Throw him into the fire, man. Let him get under center and play out there a little bit more. Challenge him a little bit more. You also say, we got a president of football, about to get a GM, got a president of football, oops. We got a manager of coaching, oops, and a coaching advisor. What the F does all these people do? What the F all these people do? I'm confused. I guess you're saying you're confused about what their roles are. It is a little bit confusing, to be honest with you, for myself included. I'm gonna not even lie to you. I'm kind of curious as to what's the difference. I believe that Arthur Blank has had Rich McKay in that position, doing the same thing that Matt Ryan was doing. I think they're just throwing a different spin on it because he has a different level of experience than Rich McKay has. I believe that when you're a person like Rich McKay, who was also a former GM, who also was the GM of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when they won the Super Bowl their first time, when they had John Gruden. I think that you kind of know what you know, and people will tend to take your advice a little bit more. I think that Matt Ryan is a little bit more humble and knows that he doesn't know certain things. I think that he knows what needs to be there in the locker room. Things like what he said in the press conference. I know how important it is to have a running game. I know how important it is to dedicate yourself to the run. I think that Matt Ryan is going to put a priority on making sure that we're a tougher football team. When you're a guy who's been a former player, you just kind of know a little bit more about what you're doing. And just speaking from my own experience, because I've had a lot of people come in my comment section. A lot of you guys were not happy. A lot of people weren't happy with my previous video where I was talking about my previous stream where I was saying, hey, I think that this is a good hire. And they told me that I was just regurgitating things that the media was saying. I'm part of the problem. I had people asking me, hey, have you ever played football? Do you even understand what's going on? Yes, I played football, played from 8th grade all the way through 4 years of college, nonstop. And I've played against really great players. DeMario Minter was on my football team in high school. Mike Davis went to our high school. I played ball with Reggie Ball and Craig Lumpkin. I've played against guys who were better athletes than me, so I had to be a student of the game. I've been watching film breakdowns since 5th or 6th grade. I used to get up at 5 in the morning and watch NFL matchup and all of that stuff. But then I went to college and I was coached by coaches who played in the league, was recruited by a guy who played in the league, and had to get a lot of film study from that way. So I kind of see the game in a different, that doesn't make me better than anybody, by the way. That's not a brag or a flex, but just saying, I kind of understand some of the things that they're doing and some of the nuance to the game as it's kind of happening in real time. And yeah, when you've been out there, you kind of know what players need. You kind of understand why they're doing some of the things that they're doing. You understand that on the field, you're not seeing everything the way that we are seeing it from a bird's eye view on the broadcast. A lot of times people are like, oh, why didn't the quarterback just go over there? You got this guy open over here. Quarterback's looking over here. It's really hard to look 25 yards over here because the field is like 50 yards wide, right? It's hard to go over to this progression just like that. And you got a blind side whichever way you're not looking at. So everything's happening. You got a clock going off in your head. So sometimes you have more time than you might realize. Sometimes you don't have as much time as you might realize. And I think that Matt gets all of those type of things. He understands the nuance of how you need to take the pressure off of a young quarterback. Michael Penix being a first-round draft pick, there's a lot of pressure on him to come in here and succeed. And sometimes you got to protect the player from themselves, right? I don't think you overprotect them, but you got to get them in a position where they're not overthinking it. You don't want them to feeling like they got to press. They got to go out here and make plays. I think that last year, Bijan Robinson, for example, to drive this point home a little bit, people were like, why is Bijan fumbling so much? Bijan Robinson, I think, is fumbling because he knows that we're losing. He knows that he's the best player on our offense. He's like, I got to make something happen. When you're that good, and you know that you're that good for your team, you want to be the person that does his part. You know that everybody else fuels off of you. And I think that Michael Penix knows, like, hey, they brought me in here to do some big things. So I think that's going to be huge. Stefanski is going to keep him out of positions of pressing too hard. He's going to keep him from trying to overthink things. Again, a lot more play action, a lot more dump downs. Hey, take what the offense is giving you. I think we're going to see Michael Penix run a little bit more this year. I think he's going to encourage that. I believe that the Falcons probably encouraged Michael Penix to probably not run as much last year. I don't know this for fact, and maybe something to come out. Michael Penix talks later, but Stefanski did say that his number one priority was to get Michael Penix rehabbed, and we know that Michael Penix is there in the building very often right now. So it's an ACL tear. I do believe that we will see him bounce back from that. You don't need Michael Penix to be Lamar Jackson out there. I mean, I think we can all agree that Michael Penix is more athletic than Baker Mayfield, for example, right? And Baker Mayfield has terrorized a lot of teams getting outside the pocket and picking up runs. Yards with his legs. We've seen Sam Darnold do it. We've seen Danny Dimes. You know, guys who are like 4.6 40s, 4.7 40s. So a lot of the times, it's all about seeing the lanes, and if you're in man coverage, knowing, hey, they're in man coverage. I could pick up these 5 yards right here. It's wide open right there. I think that oftentimes Michael Penix probably held the ball a little longer. Not too long where he would get a sack, but he was extending plays and trying to get downfield sometimes when he should have just taken the yards that were there. And I think that with more playing time and more experience comes more wisdom, right? The game slows down. I think that the game is going to slow down for a lot more for him in year 2. And it's going to slow down a lot more for our defense in year 2 as well, too. We got 4 rookies on the team, and a lot of the other guys were also young too. You had the four draft picks we had last year, 2 in the first round with James Pierce Jr. and Jalen Walker, and then also our safety and Xavier Watts and Billy Badass Bowman. Billy Badass Bowman. We're gonna coin that. Let's petition that. But then you also had Ruka Roro, who was still a younger guy. Zach Harris is starting to come into his own. Brandon Dorless. There's a lot of youth on that team, and I believe we're going to probably try to do something with our tight end. With our linebackers this year. Hopefully, draft somebody in the later round that we could potentially bring along and develop, and also another cornerback as well too. So as these guys gel a little bit more and kind of understand a little bit more of the nuance of the tricks of the trade and how to draw holding penalties, how to anticipate, become better students of the game, it's only going to get better for them. I think that we're going to have Jesse Bates again here this year with Watts, and that's going to serve him very well another year under his belt about how to break down film. And we saw Jesse Bates talk about that. Like, yeah, Watts knows where to be. This was in the offseason. He knows where to be. He knows where he's going to be. It's just about him getting acclimated to game speed and his practicing habits and practicing the way that you want to play. So I think that type of experience, and we've got some good veterans on this team, they're going to help all of that out as they go. And they've helped out Michael Penix tremendously, but I think it's going to be even better this year coming in too. Mark my words. Let me see. Any other comments out here? Well, guys, There's also the adversity that they talked about in this press conference. I think that Stefanski talks about the, smooth waters doesn't make for an experienced sailor, doesn't make a sailor better. I think that he's learned from some mistakes. He's only been a head coach in one place, but he didn't have a bad record there. But he has also been an offensive coordinator up in Minnesota as well too, and that's a place that didn't always have the best pickings of which you could get for your players. People aren't dying to go to Minnesota or Cleveland. I'm sure a lot of players want to come to Atlanta though, and I think the big challenge for him in Atlanta is going to be again the nightlife, the glitz and glamour of the city. But I think he can navigate that well. When you're in a place like Cleveland, which is a poverty-stricken town to an extent, it doesn't have the type of infrastructure that a place like Atlanta has. There leaves some room for you to get into some bad crowds, and that's available here in Atlanta as well too. But I think that he is definitely prepped for what you could have happening here in Atlanta. So I'm excited for that alone. We heard him talk about accountability, and that's starting with the locker room, but the first thing he said is, as a coach, I'm going to be accountable for the things that are done wrong. He talked about having hard work, putting in the work. I think we have a guy who's meat and potatoes. I think that Stefanski is going to make sure that he does his due diligence to have these guys prepared as much as possible. He's coached a number of positions on the offensive side of the football, but he also was a defensive back in college too. So I think that his overall understanding of football, and again, think of some of the football minds he's coached under. Mike Shanahan. He's been there with Gary Kubiak, who, if I'm not mistaken, was also a former player as well. I might be wrong about that. But a very well tenured and experienced head coach in this league who also went with the Broncos up there with Peyton Manning, but was dedicated to the run, committed to the run. Again, coached with the Shanahans, big on the West Coast offense. I think we're going to see a lot more dinking and dunking, but I think that they're going to do things to also open it up downfield, which leads me to my next thing. We're not there in free agency yet, and we're not there in the draft yet, but there are some nice options out there in free agency this year. This free agency class has tight ends. It has some nice receiver talent in George Pickens and also in Alec Pierce from the Colts. I believe, right? I know a lot of people want to see George Pickens. I love it if we can get Pickens. I don't think we're going to be able to pay him. And also, my father. I'm going to post a video that I talked to my dad during the playoff game recently. He was kind of saying, hey, we should have went for Devontae Adams last year. If we would have done that, that would have been a lot better for having Kyle Pitts. We couldn't afford Devontae Adams last year, but we can afford a premier or a better upgraded receiver this year. And if we could choose Pickens or Pierce, I'm going Pierce. I like George Pickens, great player. He's great at UGA. A little bit of an attitude problem. He could do a lot of the things that Drake London does. Got a mean streak, big body receiver. He a lot faster than Drake London, can get deep. But he's going to command a lot more money. He's probably going to want the ball a lot more. I think that Alec Pierce, on the other hand, though, he stepped in there and he knew he wasn't supposed to be the number one target, which he actually ultimately turned into this year. But the last 2 years, the last 2 seasons in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken, he led the league in yards per reception. He's a guy, I think he's 6'3", a big receiver that can get downfield and take the top off of defenses. And that's the one thing that this Falcons team is missing. It's really hard for Michael Penix to overthrow people. I think you've got what's deep in the NFL. A deep pass in the NFL is what, 20 yards or so? Well, Michael Penix is deep pass. There's deep, and then there's Michael Penix. There's cannon arm. He's a guy who has an arm like a stronger arm than Kirk Cousins, who has a strong arm, but isn't necessarily known as having a cannon arm. But he's got a Baker Mayfield strength arm. He's got a Matthew Stafford strength arm. And that's one of the people that they have definitely comped him to is Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford, and I even said Warren Moon as well, too. He reminds me of those guys. He's got solid foot. His footwork isn't the best, but he has the athleticism. But I believe they could work on his footwork a lot more. They don't need to work on his throwing motion, but they definitely could work on his footwork a little bit more. And I believe that Kevin Stefanski's probably going to be able to do a good job of that. But Michael Penix can get the ball 40 yards on the run or on a whim. He can get that ball out there 30, 40 yards. And if you got it, we need more guys that can get deep like that. Romeo Doubs. He's a guy who can get downfield. He's going to be a free agent potentially this year from Green Bay as well, too. So I like a lot of the talent that we have out there. I believe that there's some cornerbacks that we could potentially go after. And I believe that no matter whichever way we go, if we go wide receiver in free agency, we're probably going to go with tight end in the draft. Not tight end, cornerback in the draft. If we go cornerback in the free agency, we'll probably go with wide receiver in the draft. Unless, of course, we can actually hire both of those positions. We could sign both of those in free agency. We will. You don't want to have to rely on free agency typically for for too much of your roster. That's really for your immediate holes. And before you go into the NFL draft, we're definitely going to need to sign some guys because we don't have a first-round draft pick. But I believe that cornerback is a place that you could get some really good second-round talent. Wide receiver is as well too. But if we could, take care of both of those positions, that'll in free agency, that'll make it better for us in the draft. But I don't think we'll be able to do all of that because, again, we do have Kyle Pitts, who's going to be a free agent as well, too. And we also need to re-sign Kate Nellis. On top of that, David Onyemata. He's a guy that's up for a re-signing. We weren't paying him a whole lot this year. It'll be interesting if we'll bring him back. I'd love to bring him back. I still think he's got some tread on his tires. We signed him the same year that we signed our boy Caden Ellis from New Orleans, and he had a good year last year. He still made some plays out there on the field, so it just depends on what we're going to have to pay him for the veteran minimum. But we might have to wind up letting him go. So we'll see what happens with that as well, too, for some younger talent. I'm up over to the comments real quick. We're close to the time about where we're going to be needing to get up out of here, though. Millie Mills says, I think Jalen Hyatt from the Giants is a free agent as well, too. That'd be a nice addition to look at. I'm not against that. Monte Carlo, 82 Monte Carlo 28 says, we need to keep Tyler to keep Bijan fresh and keep the continuity in the locker room. I'd love to keep Tyler Allgeier. If I'm Tyler Allgeier, I'm not re-signing with Atlanta. If I'm Tyler Allgeier, I want to go somewhere and see if I can get a bigger contract, and I want to make a legacy for myself. It's easy for a running back, even though he's being used less and being kept fresh, to kind of still lose a step or two as you get older. You just naturally do. Football's a wear and tear game on your body, and you only get so many opportunities to go somewhere else and get that big contract. That first contract after your rookie year is the first opportunity to get a big contract. But he hasn't had a chance to really outperform anything yet. So he needs to go somewhere, get some money on the table, put some stats out there, show that he could be a feature back, and then try to get another contract after that. So he's probably going to go somewhere and get like maybe a 2 or 3 year deal. I don't think he's going to get a ton of money, but I think he's going to get more than Atlanta could probably give him. And I wouldn't be mad at us letting him go. Now, I'd be upset if we let him go and he went somewhere else here in our same division. That's what you don't want to see happen. And him come back with a chip on his shoulder with a grudge. But I think you could easily replace him as a running back for the most part. He's not as irreplaceable as a Bijan Robinson. I kind of look at him as a guy like Gus Edwards, who was there with the Ravens, one of my favorite running backs who is not a household name. 3 yards in a cloud of dust type of guy. Similar to David Montgomery, I think that he's a lot stronger of a runner than David Montgomery, and he's not as good out of the backfield as a David Montgomery. But you are right. I would like to see that. We kind of got our own version of Thunder and Lightning here in Atlanta, as the Lions have up there with Montgomery and Gibbs. But you're right, we do need to have another person. I would love to have another power back, but imagine if you had another scat back out there with Bijan, because Bijan is not just contrary to what a lot of people believe, Bijan is not just a finesse runner. He will run your ass over, man. He will run through you. 220 pounds, 4'4", 740, and his quickness, he just goes from 0 to 100 to his top speed so much faster than a lot of people in the league. He's a nightmare to try to guard in pass coverage for a linebacker, or safety, or even a cornerback, if you will. And he's hard to tackle in the open field, and he's hard to read through all the mess of blocking. He's got really good vision. His vision's gotten a lot better. So it's kind of hard to kind of catch him with that stop and go, as he's reading his play, setting up his blocks. Before you know it, he's jogging, and boom, he's out of there. So it's kind of hard to adjust to that as a linebacker. So I think that anybody that you have there, but definitely I would like to see another running back added to keep Bijan fresh. Jamal ATL 404 says they need to scrape the whole wide receiver room outside of Drake. Cut Mooney in his route run and his route quitting, and sign a couple of wide receivers. Bring back Chris Blair and draft one in the second round. Jamal, I don't know if I can disagree with you on that. I don't know if I can disagree with you on that at all. I'm not opposed to that idea. I myself would like to see us bring back Darnell Mooney. I think they were a better squad if Darnell Mooney is still on this team as a number 3 receiver. I was telling my pops this as well last year. Kyle Pitts should have gotten the receptions and should have the numbers that Darnell Mooney had in the previous year with Kirk Cousins. And essentially that's what happened. That is essentially what happened. So I wouldn't be against getting rid of Mooney. I think he is still on the contract. Maybe they could do a restructure. I think cutting him would put us at a cap hit with some dead space. But I wouldn't be against bringing him back as well, too. I'd honestly like to keep him. He's a better number 3 receiver than he is as a number 2 receiver. And it makes it a lot harder for teams to match up on you if you could do that. And if you get rid of him, you got to replace him. And we're already needing to replace and add more talent anyway. Especially, you can never be too deep at wide receiver, in my humble opinion, and you can't be too deep at cornerback. Now, you can for guys saying there's not enough balls to go around, but these wide receivers, they're divas. Everybody wants the ball. And so these guys, they'll get their head out of the game if they're not able to still keep if you don't get the ball to them quickly and often early, and if they don't feel like they're a part of the game, that these guys won't block downfield, they'll quit on some of their routes. So you want tough-nosed, hard-nosed guys who will go out here and just do their job. But I'm with you. Let's add some more receivers, not necessarily premier guys, not number 1 guys, but guys who will just go and do their job. I think it'd be good to have a short area guy, a better version of a Ray McLeod. I wasn't very fond of Ray McLeod. I think we need to add a little bit more speed on the field. But we just need guys who are going to catch the ball. We do need some speed out there, right? And I want guys who are good route runners. But the primary objective of a wide receiver is, first and foremost, you got to catch the ball and secure that ball. So I want to see us add some guys like that. And the primary objective of your quarterback is first to do no harm. It's like the Hippocratic oath for doctors. First, do no harm to your patients. First, do no harm to your offense and your team by turning the ball over, taking sacks, and no drive stopping. So I'm really excited to see what we're going to do with that. I think that we're going to get a lot of basicness with Kevin Stefanski, and that's not a bad thing. A lot of people were talking about the creativity of play calling. I think that the creativity will be in how we call the plays. There'll be creativity at play calling. They were saying they don't think he's got a creative offense, and some of his plays aren't quite as creative. We don't need all of that. We need to get creative with our play calling and mix it up and keep them on their toes. And I think that that's something that we're going to do. We saw that a lot in Cleveland. At least I saw that in Cleveland. I checked them out from time to time because Nick Chubb was one of my favorite guys to watch, and I had him on my fantasy football teams a lot while he was up there. So, and I even checked him out a little bit this year as well too. So I like the direction that we're going in right now. So let me see if I have any last minute other thoughts. We believe he's going to be a partner in personnel. I like what they're doing out here. I think that Kevin Stefanski is going to have a lot more say-so in what we're doing in the draft and free agency. Think about it. Last year, they drafted 2 quarterbacks outside of the first 2 rounds. They drafted the boy Dylan Gabriel, and they turned around and drafted a quarterback in the 5th round in Shedeur Sanders, which is not a good recipe. They say if you got 2 quarterbacks, you got no quarterback. And honestly, I think that was a dumb strategy. Why draft 2 quarterbacks when you could have given him a lot more talent on the offensive side? Because Cleveland really didn't have any number 1 receivers. Jerry Jeudy was all right. They had a couple guys who were speedsters, but they didn't have anybody that if you go and pick on them and you say, you know what, we're we're going to cover him and not let him get the ball. They didn't have anybody else who can necessarily beat the one-on-ones if you put your lockdown corner on him. And that's a smart philosophy, is you double team guys like Drake London, or you double team guys like Cheetah, Jerry Rice. You double team those guys, and then you put your best cornerback on the other guy. Deion Sanders didn't always guard the number one guy. Sometimes he guarded the fastest guy on the team. Sometimes he guarded the number two, because if you double, it's hard to beat double coverage. If you double the number one, that number two needs to be able to beat his guy. And every team doesn't have that. But there are some guys in this NFL draft that were not the number one receivers on their team, and they're probably a better overall receiver, than the number one, because typically in college, your number one receiver isn't the best overall receiver on your team. He's not the best at route running and catching and all that. He's just the most athletic guy. And so I think that there's an opportunity for us to find something like that in the draft. So again, I think that there's a lot more to be excited about than not be excited about. I don't know what Kevin Stefanski is going to do. He could come in here and stink it up in year one. But I think that we put ourselves in a position to potentially have a better season with the guy who's been there before and who's seen it before, coming out the gate up top. I think that we have an opportunity for a lot more sound football decisions and a lot more just basics being put together right there. Stay tuned to us, guys. I will keep dropping gems for you. I will keep the news coming out as it happens in real time. I love each and every one of you for checking out and supporting us. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button. Hit that notifications bell so you can stay up to date every time we drop new content. C-Mo to C. Mitchell for Point Game Official and the Falcons Bird Bad, baby. Check him out. Peace.